This is Chill Bill coming at you live from Cathedral, introducing another segment of the 10th anniversary celebration of Skylanders Portal Casters. Over to you, Inklander.
Thanks, Chill Bill. Welcome back, everyone. For this segment, we are joined by Alex Ness, who was the narrative lead on Skylanders Giants, Skylanders Trap Team, and Skylanders Imaginators, and also has voiced, it seems like half the characters from the Skylanders games. This is, a segment that I've kind of wanted to do for a while. I've always kind of joked with Ditto about it. We need to do a segment called What in the World Did Alex Ness Not Do? So, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And in the spirit of that, I also worked on Spyro's Adventure, the first one, too. I don't know if you said that one.
Oh, no, I didn't. You're listed as a co-writer in the credits alongside the people that did Toy Story. But were you more involved in it than just co-writer?
Yes, for sure. And the Toy Story thing, we did work with two writers, Alec and Joel, in the beginning, and nothing really came out of it, but we kept their names on it because it sounds better if a new game had the Toy Story writers, especially a game that involves toys. So yeah, they didn't really work on anything that got in the game, and me and some of the designers and Activision and Paul, of course, all kind of cobbled together the story, and that's how it worked. Yes.
Oh wow, well there we go. So that's cool. I didn't know you had such a huge hand in Spyro's Adventure, but that's excellent to hear. How did you get involved in the video game industry, narrative writing, and voice acting?
Well, so in the video game industry, I started off answering phones at Sega of America in the early 90s. I was 16 and I had done, I was 16, I was 17, 16 anyway. I had done some phone work before, and this was right before Sonic 2 came out, so the department was still very small. It was like maybe 19 guys in there, and they hired me just because I had phone experience, even though I had no idea what I was doing. But I ended up doing that for a number of years, and then I got into testing, and then I got into production, and then I got into design, and then I got back into production. And in answer to the question about narrative writing, it kind of happened by default, because as a lot of times producers in games, you kind of, they say you wear many hats, you fill in and you do stuff, whatever you can to help out. And we, oftentimes we need writing for games, and maybe we're going to hire a writer, or kind of like in the case of what I just mentioned with the first Spyro's Adventure game, things don't work out. So I would just end up doing it. And I started doing that for our games. And then even with voice acting, we like to put in placeholders. So we want to get audio in there before we get to the real actors. So I would just do a bunch of characters really quick, record it at my desk. So we'd have some audio in there to hear it. And some of the stuff we just, and not just me, but other people liked it and thought it was good and fit the character. So eventually, I think it was Disney. Yeah, the Disney Extreme State Adventure game was the first one that I was actually in the final game. And then we did the Madagascar stuff. Then with Skylanders, we had so many characters, and some of it just kind of worked out and fit. And same thing, another one of our designers, Errol, did a lot of voices for us too. So it always helps if you got you can understand the characters a little bit better if you really, if you're making them and working with them every day. So that's kind of the long short story.
Wow.
That's true. The characters then do just kind of become a part of you, don't they?
Oh, they very much do. And yeah, especially when you're dealing with little crazy creatures, or guys that are made of broccoli, they speak to you deep inside. And maybe they're already in there, and suddenly they find the outlet they've been looking for your whole life.
Yeah, and I think you hold the record for most characters voiced in the Skylanders games. I think you voiced around 10 or 12, I think, maybe more, that I don't know about.
Yeah, well, that's funny. I never even thought about the record, but yes, it probably would be me, because I even did some stuff like vocalizations in it. So yeah, I'd say that's probably true. That's cool.
So which characters in the Skylanders franchise did you do voice work for, and what were some of the inspirations for the voices?
Let's see. For the Skylanders themselves, there was Double Trouble, and I can't remember what was his. We wanted to do kind of Ooga Booga Tiki stuff, but I didn't want it to sound, he's a small guy, so I didn't think it would sound like, Ooga Booga or anything like that. And then there was Drobot, which obviously doesn't sound like me at all because it's heavily treated, but the inspiration was Soundwave from the Transformers, because he always sounded so cool.
Oh, and I can hear that.
Yeah. He's a cool character, so why not? Drobot's pretty cool. And then Lightning Rod, which was just kind of, I don't know where that one that came from but it was obviously you would have a big booming voice, so that's kind of what we went with. And then bad guys. There was Drill X guy, which was also kind of sound wavy, but I wanted a rapping robot. Of course, we had to go with, and Chompy Mage, which I didn't even think about it at the time, but I kind of thought about Skeletor from He-Man. But if you watch the Frosty the Snowman, the original cartoon from the '60s. Professor Hinkle is very Chompy Magey as well, and that might have been in there somewhere. And the sad thing is, I can't really do it very well anymore. I'm a boxing coach, so I yell a lot. So a lot of those sharp, high pitched noises, I can't do as well. I can do them, they just don't sound good. So I do them for you right now, but it won't sound good. And then God, what else? In the trap team, it was a lot because we had so many bad guys. Broccoli Guy, Chill Bill, Tae Kwon Crow, Brawlrus, probably a bunch I'm not thinking of, but yeah, I did a fair. And then a lot of the voice prints for the characters would be ones that I do, like some like Chef Pepperjack, like I did a voice that sounded pretty much exactly like that, and but they didn't want to have just the exact same voice doing so many characters, so sometimes we got people to do just pretty much a similar thing but slightly different voice. Tree Rex, the same kind of thing, and Giants. And I really think there's probably a few I'm forgetting, but those are the ones that I most remember. So
you're listed as Blastertron as well, I believe.
Blastertron. I thought that might be Errol, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. There was one too I saw on Wikipedia said like Billy West did a character, but I think they had it they were wrong. It was for the TV show. I don't know if they ever changed it.
George Takei is listed as Drillax.
What? That's funny. He was awesome. I was really glad we got him. I love that voice.
Yes, he has such an iconic voice, and it's great to have him as the Archean Conkertron and Giants. But not Drillax. He's not Drillax.
Yeah, it's true. He didn't. We should have got him to rap, though. I bet would have done a good job.
Yeah, probably would have been pretty funny. So how difficult was it to keep coming up with new personalities as the games went on?
I would say that was not super difficult because a large part just due to the character design. Certainly Iway and others did such a great job with the characters all had a distinct look and feel to them, so it made it a lot easier to do the voices. I mean, there are occasional ones where I definitely got it wrong, and we had to kind of redo it, where I thought an idea would work and it didn't really work. The only one I'm thinking of is the dog that's the fire element dog. God, what's his name?
Hot Dog.
Yeah. I wanted him to be really smart and sound kind of like Captain Picard, but that didn't. Everybody thought that was stupid, and they thought he should have sounded like a dog. So we changed it. But yeah, I would say that was luckily the characters really made that easy. And then sometimes you just kind of just randomly like in the case of Broccoli Guy, I just went in and just started talking, and I didn't even think what is Broccoli Guy going to sound like. It just that's what happened.
Yeah, Broccoli Guy, I think, is probably my favorite character that you've voiced.
Oh, good. He's probably my favorite too. My wife says he's the most like me, and it is true. I never wrote a single line that Broccoli Guy says. That was 100% ad-libbed. No other character did we do that with, but Broccoli Guy. For some reason, I just felt like that was just going to let it go. It was just going to whatever comes out comes out.
So all those lines in the arena battles in Imaginators from Broccoli Guy, those were just ad-libbed?
Oh, well, you kind of got me there. Those ones were not, but that is how I wrote them. So I sat there and I had Chill Bill, because I did Chill Bill as well. So I just talked to myself as Chill Bill, and then I kind of responded as Broccoli Guy would respond, and then I typed it. But yeah, you're right. Those, and I fixed some stuff too. So it wasn't like it was. It's a good point. I forgot about that. That was funny. I hope people got to see that or play that. It was kind of cool.
I loved the arena.
Oh yeah,
Imaginators.
yeah.
I spent so many hours there. I still spend hours there.
Oh yeah, it's
good.
incredible. It's really, really some great voice work. And you mentioned talking to yourself. There's that one viral video from Skylanders Giants. It's Christmas for Bad Guys too. And,
oh yeah.
It has the voices of Lightning Rod, Drill X, Chompy Mage, and Noodles in there.
Oh God, I forgot Noodles, just like he says in the song. I did Noodles too. How could I forget that?
And I think it's funny because going back and watching that video, it's this is just Alex Ness talking to himself for 3 minutes.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things we did. I was like a bucket list thing. If I could do a Christmas song, I mean, it's largely stolen from Jingle Bells, but still, yeah, that was great. That was fun working with the sound crew, Dan Neal and Stefan, one other guy. But anyway, the sound guys were awesome working with them on that. It was super fun. I know they really enjoyed trying to beat match my rapping to the beats because made it so easy for them, which I'm kidding about. I'm a terrible rapper. It was a lot of work.
Oh, I thought it was good. Yeah, I think Chompy Mage is rapping, and that's pretty on point.
Good.
So, you mentioned that Broccoli Guy was probably your favorite character that you did voice work for, but are there any character voices that made it into the final games that you look back on that you wish you could change?
That's a good question, and the answer is a lot, and it's a lot of the Skylanders, not so much the NPCs, but the Skylanders themselves. And maybe not a lot of the more well-known ones, but I felt like a lot of them were just too generic, and I lean away from that personally, and maybe sometimes too much. But yeah, a lot of them, and I mean, I couldn't even give you a good example, but many of them, they just I felt like, especially some of the female ones, like they just I wasn't involved in casting, so it wasn't. I wouldn't have wanted that, but it happened for a lot of the Skylanders since their lines were not necessarily connected with the story. They were kind of one-off. So I wasn't in on all those recording sessions for those. And I wish I had found the time and done it and made more just of an issue for a little more character in some of them. That was kind of an ongoing, I wouldn't say argument, but like between us and Activision was just wackiness versus not wackiness, in some stages. And I know like we had talked about doing more audio treatment for the voices at first, and they had said to dial it back. And I think they were right about that for sure. But I think some of the characters were just too, especially female Skylanders, were too generic. So yeah, I can't think of I could go around my son's room and see his poster, but yeah, some of them I wish we could have tried a little bit harder to find a different voice print for him.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and speaking of wackiness, one of the things that Paul Ritchie talked to us about was he kind of perceived, it's always been like this fan theory that there were two alternate universes, one for the Toys for Bob games and one for the Vicarious Visions games, and Paul Ritchie was like, yeah, that's kind of right. And he kind of talked a little bit about how you wanted to take things a little bit more wackier sometimes than Vicarious Visions. So I guess let's go ahead and talk about the narrative side of things. So what was the process like for coming up with the plots for the Skylanders games? And what was it like trying to integrate that storyline into the gameplay and level design alongside whatever new gimmick was introduced that year?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there were kind of like two alternative universes. There was kind of two very different parts of that narrative, because there was the overarching "what are we doing here" part, and that was something that a lot of people wanted input on at Activision and at Toys for Bob, and that would take a while. And there would kind of be these big story meetings with some of us where we'd talk about, first of all, what the gimmick was and how that was going to relate. Then we'd kind of come up with a treatment for it and get approval from all the various leads and heads of department. But then it was like, so we had the kind of overall story, but then what were the pieces and how was that going to relate to levels? What were you going to do in each level? Who were you going to meet? What was going to happen? And then that was more just between me and one of my counterparts at Activision, Mike Graham, and the level designers individually. And that was, it wasn't on such a high level, but it was challenging, because to tell a good story or have these things kind of come together, it requires extra work from design and art. And I always tried to make it as non-invasive as possible, but to some degree, sometimes we needed assets and things to sell these things as happening. And that was always tough too, because there was a schedule, time crunch. I mean, we turned Giants around in 11 months. And then for Trap Team, there was so long before we actually knew what the gimmick, as you say, was going to be for that one, so that once we got to building the levels around that story, there just wasn't as much time. So that was always the toughest part, is like, how do we make this a story? Because I really don't want to just go to a level to get something so I can go to another level to get something, so I can go to another level to get something. Like, I don't like that personally, and I don't think it's a good story, but sometimes that was the push people wanted to go in, because it was just easy and doable and required the least excess work, which I can understand.
I really liked what you did with Giant's story. Like, I like how it felt very Indiana Jonesy throughout the whole thing. Like, it was like a chase, right? It was a chase against chaos. Who can get to the Iron Fist Arcus first, and I think that was pretty cool how that was set up.
Yeah, because that would be, sometimes levels would be early and not really have a narrative sheet to them yet. And like, I really like the idea of going to Chaos's castle area and like, just seeing pictures of him and Glumshanks, just those little things like that was the kind of stuff I always wanted to get into the level so that we could actually, kind of make it, again, not just a basic video game level, but something that feels more connected. And yeah, and I like the idea of the giants, the kind of prehistoric Skylanders. It was a tough sell to people, but yeah, I liked how we did the first level on that. But that took a lot of convincing and arguing.
No, I think that first level's pretty good. Like, I think it's a pretty solid introductory level to the game. I started with Giants, so that was the first level I ever played. So,
oh my god, really? That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I liked it. It really drew me in. Obviously, now I have like every single Skylander ever made. I have artwork on my walls and everything. But
oh wow.
Yeah, it definitely captivated me. So I think you did a great job there.
Oh, good.
Which was the most difficult storyline to write for, and why?
I would say Imaginators, I think, because we were a combination of switching to a totally different tool set, spending so much modeling and animation time on the Imaginators themselves, which makes sense because you have to make all different parts and everything. And actually, one of your questions even kind of relates to that you sent me. Is why Skylanders as NPCs versus, the traditional NPCs that we would always do. That was part of the reason. That wasn't all the reason, but it was definitely part of it. Yeah, in that game, it was just going to be really hard to do. We couldn't, we were using new tools, so a lot of the cinematic stuff was, in some ways, I think it was a little bit more challenging, or at least it was different. It was our fourth game as Toys for Bob and sixth in the series. Maybe just feeling like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What's going to be different about this? And I thought we had a really good hook with the Imaginators, but there was no way. Well, there were plenty of ideas as to how to make it tie into the story, but not ones people wanted to go with. So I think that was a hard one.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine it was probably a little hard coming off of Superchargers because a lot of fans love the story of Superchargers. So it might have been hard to try to come up with like some sort of follow-up to that too.
Yeah, and it was the Imaginators themselves were pretty unrelated, and we've already kind of like, we've had the new characters be the Trap Masters or the Giants, the prehistoric ones. It's like, okay, so now there's going to be other new ones, and how are they going to factor in, and not a way that feels like we're just kind of going back to the same well. Another thing too with what we often heard is people didn't want long cutscenes. And I, for the most part, agreed with that. And, we'd try to make them short, but then people would say, okay, well, we need to set this up. We need to explain this. We need to do this. And so it's like, okay, we're going to have lots of cutscenes if you want to do it that way, or we cannot, and see if people get it. And like in that one, I was trying hard to make the cutscenes shorter as much I could, but it also felt like it lost some of that same feel for me. And like, I loved going to levels, especially like in all the games we did, and just seeing tons of NPCs and meeting these strange weirdos and hearing their problems and all that. Like, I loved that, but I was getting the sense that maybe not everybody did. So that was another reason why I thought, well, we'll make the Skylanders themselves more characters in these levels and see how that works to mix it up. So yeah, it was kind of something to mix it up, but I think in the end, I didn't like it as much.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have to say the fans didn't like it either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What? Tell me what they said, because I left like pretty much as soon as I was done with that story. I had left, and I did read reviews at the time, but I honestly don't remember a ton of them. So yeah, I don't know what the fan community had to say, but they didn't like it either.
Yeah, the general fan opinion is basically like, what happened to Flynn? What happened to Tessa and Callie and Hugo? All these characters that we love. What they got sidelined.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that makes you feel kind of good, but kind of sad, because I was like, I didn't know if people liked them, and I thought maybe that the Skylanders are the superheroes and the cool ones, and maybe that's what we should go with. So I guess
we love chaos, everyone. We really do. How difficult was it to keep coming with unique characterization to write for every year?
The hardest thing really was just getting everybody to work around a story that I wanted to do. And the characters themselves, people, I mean, at the office seemed to like them generally. And we had similar discussions about NPCs and just even all kinds of crazy stuff that has nothing to do with the game. But we talked about, Blobber's lifestyle. But yeah, I think the hardest thing really was just putting that character into levels, into the game with people that maybe weren't super, like that was the last thing on their list in terms of all the other things they had to do. So trying to care about it and get other people to care about it when they didn't have a lot of time to really do any extra work to implement it was hard.
I guess one of my questions then is like Flynn and Chaos, right? They're kind of our protagonist and our antagonist for most of the games. So I guess how important was it to you to be able to kind of have them almost kind of mirror each other, right? Like they're both kind of egotistical. They both kind of want the fame and recognition, but Chaos is going about it by trying to conquer Skylands. And Flynn is trying to go about it by helping the Skylanders. Like, how important was that kind of character dynamic to you in developing that throughout the stories?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't think of them like you just said, but what you said is certainly true. And I mean, one characteristic I liked with both of them is being oblivious to like how absurd they are and still thinking that they're amazing. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was made it funny with Flynn. And I also thought like, you're in this game, you're helping these NPCs that aren't doing, much of anything for themselves. I mean, even I made fun of the Mavu Defense Force in Trap Team. I thought it would just be funny if that character thought he was awesome and kind of doing everything, when in reality, of course, you were doing everything. Yeah. And of course, like Chaos, like it definitely making him, I can't remember if we did have versions of him that were more like serious and evil. But in the end, I don't think that was our DNA really as a studio, as people say. Like we were too wacky and too silly, and the idea that a small, bald, screaming man made more sense. But yeah, the Chaos. I'm trying to think. Well, he was so much after the other character that Invader Zim. He was all like, and then Flynn for me was, the voice made it totally different with Warburton, but there's a show called Blackadder that my wife and I were watching a lot at the time, and like there was a character in there, Captain Flashheart, his name, and that was kind of my inspiration for Flynn. A little bit not necessarily appropriate for kids, like version of it, but still what I thought. Like even just thinking about like him saying "boom" after everything was kind of similar to something Flashheart would do. So yeah.
And Boom has become iconic because of Flynn.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because I didn't originally envision Patrick Warburton, and I can't remember what I did think about. But when they talked about getting him, I wasn't quite sure I was going to work. And it was like it worked perfectly, and he totally got it, and in his own way, made that work perfectly. So that was a good development there. I can imagine without him, how Flynn would be.
So you've already mentioned some of your inspirations there, taking some inspirations from some shows, but did you have any other inspiration for writing the characters?
Simpsons was always going to be a big one. I love The Simpsons, and I've seen, well, at least for a good 15 years of it, I've seen every episode millions of times. So no matter what I do, there's probably more Simpsons inside me than any other voices. So yeah, I would say that was, and then in terms of like the overall narrative approach, I would say Princess Bride was a good one. Not that we were necessarily like them, but in the idea that you were doing sort of a slight send up of a fairy tale, at least in the case of Princess Bride, but still honoring some of the true things about it. So it's like Shaun of the Dead is another example where it's like it stands alone as just a good zombie movie, even if you took all the funny stuff out and all the kind of send up stuff that they do. But it also makes fun of that and is funny on that level. So I don't know. I always like that idea that you could be true to like just a straight story, but also make it funny at the same time.
Oh my, that's amazing. I'm so happy you brought up Princess Bride, because literally a couple episodes ago in I think the Flynn episode where we talk about the best Flynn moments, we were playing back through one of the levels. It was Nightmare Express, and I was like, I feel like this is Princess Bride inspired. I was like, I could be wrong. I don't think that's what they were going for, but it feels Princess Bride-like to me.
It also had very, very much Indiana Jones vibes.
Yes, that too.
Yeah.
Or Flint Indiana Jones, as we made the joke.
Yeah, that's right. We said that was what we called that level for a while before it got a real name, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah, so that's so good to know that Princess Bride was one of the inspirations, because I feel it. I can see it there. So it's great to have confirmation on that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad people got that connection too, because obviously that's a great work. It's cool that we could emulate it in some way.
Yeah, I think you did a good job. Like the comedy is there, but it's still serious, but it has that same kind of comedy to it, which is great.
And it makes, hopefully, like, I didn't want the offense to feel ineffectual because it was so jokey, but I wanted to, I think Paul is very much the same way, still have that element there.
Yeah, I think it works. Yeah, I think it works really well.
It worked really well.
Cool, thank you guys. I mean, I should talk to you more often. You make me feel good.
Who was it that came up with the Skylanders names and catchphrases?
The names, that was a lot of, because we all had names for those guys, and most of them changed. So it was always funny. Sometimes we don't know the names of the actual names because we still call them by what they were to us. But I guess he was the CEO, Eric. He was really big on the names and catchphrases. That was a huge thing for him, and the characters, improving the characters. So a lot of those names, yeah, it was a combination of marketing, other Activision executrons. We'd put forth names, but we never got married to any of them because we knew they were just going to change them to what they wanted. And the catchphrases, usually that was the same thing. That was probably not Eric so much the catchphrases, but the other marketing and production executives would do that, because originally we had multiple catchphrases for Inspire's Adventure, and some of them originally wasn't even going to be in English. It was all going to be just gibberish, and we for a long time had gibberish in there, and I think we kept a couple of them. But then they decided they wanted one in Giants. That was one of the big things. They're like, we need to be one catchphrase, and put it on the box, and that's their catchphrase. So that one usually we were pretty removed from. Everything else we did, but that was something that they really wanted. And yeah, the names, it's funny how much they put a lot into those names in terms of like going back and forth. And I remember this email chain for, the mini version of Tree Rex, which ended up being called Barkley. So I was looking at this email chain going back and forth, because originally the obvious one was Wee Rex, but then someone's like, nah, it makes him sound kind of weak and all that. And I was looking at this and I was thinking, like, all those people that were responding to this thread make really good salaries. And so I was thinking, I wonder how much the name of this little miniature character actually cost if you were to multiply it that way. Yeah, it was people at the top really, in Activision brass weighing in on it.
That's interesting to know. I am kind of surprised to hear that it was that big of a deal. Like, they're also punny and clever. It definitely felt like something that you were coming up with.
Well, they did, because we originally were all puns, and that was kind of the idea that got run with. Because yeah, for Spyro's Adventure, we did all of them, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but we did all of them, and they were all punny and kind of goofy and dad jokes, as I was just about to become a dad. And then yeah, they that was something that they liked, I guess, and ran with it, because sometimes it was like you'd have to crowbar that pun in, but they were getting it in.
Interesting.
Yeah, cool. That's good to know. So, I mean, I guess speaking of the characters, we got to ask like a fan question here. So obviously there's the TV show, Skylanders Academy, which, spoiler alert, Chaos's dad in the TV show is Master Eon. But we were wondering if you, from the writing of the game side, had a different opinion on who Chaos's dad is in the video games.
Other than Darth Vader, not really. Yeah, it was, we never really, I never even thought about Chaos's dad too much. I mean, I always assumed he wasn't, because his mother's so domineering, that it was just, he was just a mama's boy kind of guy. But of course, yeah, a long lost father would have to come in at some point. And I didn't see that part in the show. I saw the first season, and that was it. So yeah, I wish I could give you a really good answer for that, but I guess you could say me. I'm his dad.
All right.
That's a really great answer.
There we go. Canon.
And then something I've always wondered, as well as many of the fans, is when Trap Team came around, the characters Mags and Buzz kind of just appeared out of nowhere, and it was already like they were a part of it. What are their origins?
So I wanted to do the academy, the castle place, the place the Skylanders would, like, their Xavier School for the Gifted kind of thing. And we thought we'd have ancillary characters, but I didn't want it just to be like other Mabu, like what we'd done in the past. So yeah, that was one case too where we had, there must have been just in production, there was time to model those new guys. So for Mags, I wanted her to just be the ultimate like fix it person, so that any technology could just come from her, and that would be simple. And as a character, this isn't age appropriate for a Skylanders audience, but there was a show, Deadwood, and Calamity Jane. I loved that performance. That actress was awesome, and so when I saw her, I thought about her for Mags, just being that type. I mean, that's why she's Southern. And then Buzz is like kind of an alter. I would say it's sort of the combination of Gary Busey and an alter ego of mine, of being kind of this crusty old weirdo that, the secret ninja commando skills and all that. So, and I thought it would give just having Flynn deal with another character like him and how he would deal with that. Yeah, I just thought it would be kind of an interesting dynamic as long. And I also thought having them be similar and talk about, I mean, there was some stuff that I didn't get in there, but, talk about things that where you're clearly like, dude, that guy's your dad, and you both have no idea. So,
whoa,
yeah.
Hold on. So that's been a fan theory for quite a while, is that Buzz, it's kind of hinted that Buzz and Flynn kind of have this connection that Flynn might not know about. And a lot of fans have been saying, oh yeah, it's like Buzz is Flynn's dad. Is that?
Yes.
Yes?
That was true from the instant. And I guess I didn't make it obvious enough. But I remember there was some stuff that never got in about that. But yeah, I wanted it to at some point be a joke that it's amazing that they don't realize this, that they're talking about shared experiences and neither realizes that they're. But I think also I hint that Buzz knows. There was one line I remember, and I can't remember what it was, but I just remember writing it, that Buzz may know. But it was just tough because, I mean, how much of this was like not just a B story, but the story to get in with all the other stuff going on. But yeah, that was for sure Buzz Flynn's dad. No doubt about it.
Wow. Wow.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, confirmed.
I didn't realize that was debated.
People have been speculating about it for years.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
I'm glad the mystery is solved.
Yeah, all right. So there we go. That's wow. All right. So you've worked on a lot of Skylander stories over the years. Which one stands out to you as the one you're most proud of? And are there any of the stories that you wish you could go back and change?
I would say for sure Trap Team is my favorite because the concept and the idea of having them trapped and talking to you inside this whole thing, I just thought it was so cool. And obviously for a writer, it was great because I just got to do a bunch of stuff. And yeah, that was definitely fun. And I mean, I liked the story. I liked the characters. I liked the idea that there were those super villains, that were much cooler and more powerful than Chaos. And that was for sure, that was the most fun. I mean, for a long time, we all said like Giants was our favorite game, and I did enjoy working on that a lot too. But I think it's probably Trap Team, and then we've already touched on it. Imagineers, I would say for sure. I wish we could redo. I wish we could fill those worlds with NPCs and life. Not even just characters, but just ambient life in general. Like that was the hardest thing, and I don't know if it was a tools issue or a model. It could have just been pure modeling crunch because we had to redo everything for the new tools as well, plus all the Imagineer parts. It was a huge Herculean effort on the modeling and animation department. So that could have been where we were just limited. But I really wish those worlds felt as kind of rich, and then worlds being like the levels you go to and places you go. I wish those could have felt more alive and magic and just Skylanders-y. To me, it just didn't feel as Skylanders-y. And it was kind of sad because it was the last one I worked on, and it's the only one I'm kind of not a fan of. And I meant to play it again. I was going to play it again this summer, but I never did. But maybe I'll feel differently now that some time has passed. But I think it's just, it would be that one. I wish we could take another shot at that back in time. But I don't know that anything could have been different just based on what we were dealing with.
Yeah, that's just interesting to know because generally it's perceived by most people. Ditto disagrees. Ditto thinks Imaginators is the best game.
Oh, cool.
But
that's good.
Yeah, generally most of the fans would say that their least favorite Toys for Bob game is Imaginators.
What do people say is the least favorite of the series? Just out of curiosity.
Usually it's either Superchargers or Imaginators. Usually.
Okay.
And they're all wrong. Those are the two best games in the series.
Yeah, Ditto has completely opposite opinions.
At that point. It could have been, it also like just fatigue when you get, it's kind of like Friday the 13th part 5 is as good as Friday the 13th part 1. Right? That's my guess. But Who knows?
Yeah,
I know the team worked hard on it, and I know that everybody cared a lot about it. But yeah, it was hard for that one to leave on that one. But it was time to go.
Yeah, but that being said, though, even though it's like the least favorite, people still like it. You know, like everyone still likes all the Skylanders games. It's just that's the one that I think the fans generally perceive as like the weakest.
Yeah, I can say I probably agree with the fans. I wasn't a fan of Swap Force myself, but yeah.
Yeah, Ditto does not like Swap Force.
So what was the best part for you about working on the Skylanders team?
The best part was, and I guess this relates to the Christmas song as well, but like there were a lot of people where you could say, hey, I've got a crazy idea. Let's try this. And they'd be like, oh, crazy. All right, let's do it. Like that was fun. That was fun to have people that kind of all felt the spirit of what we were doing and were excited to like do something different and being passionate about, some idea that you came up with and trying to figure out how we can make it work. That's the kind of stuff that, and with even just with the concept itself, it's like, I thought probably up until a month until Skylanders Spyro's Adventure shipped, I seriously thought Activision was going to call us and say, you know what, we're not doing this. This is crazy. We're not going to make a bunch of toys. We don't make toys. I can't believe that they went for it. I mean, not only did they go for it, but they really supported us and they gave us an extra year on that game to make it much better than it would have been. They gave us a lot of resources and we, more than doubled our team size and everything. So they were very supportive, which you don't usually hear about from big publishers and kind of wackier ideas. But yeah, I would say that I liked that there was that spirit with a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people to just try something new. I mean, there was even like our sound guys were perfect examples of that. It would be like, hey, let's put a Capybara song in the game. And like, they'd be like, sure, stop by, just come on in the studio, let's just record it and do it. And like, that kind of stuff was really fun.
So what was an average day like working at the Toys for Bob offices on Skylanders?
Average day? Well, it depends on, for me, there was a fair amount of meetings, because I worked with all the different disciplines. And, throughout Skylanders, my role changed a little bit over time, but I was always involved with high-level production and some parts of design and, certainly the narrative stuff. So it was a lot of meetings, a lot of chatting with the people next to me in cubes. But some people, were more heads down in games, but because of my role, I was always talking to a lot of different people, talking to Activision as well. It was kind of for a long time, one of our liaisons with the publishing side, playing a lot, testing a lot, jokes. It was a pretty fun place to work. It's interesting. We got bigger and it changed a lot because for a long time we were just this tiny, we were like in the tens. So it was strange as we grew over that franchise, and there are people like I didn't even know or I just said hi to or something, and that was different. But then there are people that, the other producers and stuff that I was talking to about, what was on Game of Thrones last night and all that. So yeah, very friendly, like hanging out with your friends, but then in meetings sometimes you get in big arguments.
So do you have any advice for those aspiring to enter the video game industry?
Yes, and it kind of dovetails on what I said at the very end, which is being able to criticize and be criticized. These are very difficult things to do well, but they're huge. And I can say that with all honesty, it wore me down at the end. But it's tough because chances are, hopefully people that get into this industry are passionate and creative and they have all these ideas and all these things they want to do. I was certainly like that, and many of the people there were like that. And I assume it's true all around. So that's a cool thing, right? Because you don't want to work with just a bunch of people who are drones and don't care. But the other side is everybody's got their own ideas. Everybody's got their own creative ideas. Everyone gets their stamp on it. So you have to convince them to do your thing instead of maybe their thing, or you have to, convince them how to change their thing, but they don't agree. And then everybody's very smart usually. So we come up with all these logical reasons. Here's why my creative idea makes the most logical sense, but it's all because it's just, you like it because you like it because it's your thing and you like it and you think it's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's hard to convince people on an intellectual level sometimes how that is. And so you're going to be criticized. Your stuff is going to be criticized. What you come up with, your ideas, your thoughts are going to be picked apart. And that's just part of it. And it's not easy because you take it personal, or you think, man, this person's saying I'm bad and I think they're stupid and, all that kind of childish stuff. But it's all in our brains. So if you're going to get in the industry, you've just got to have that mentality. I mean, even if you're a coder, right? You're gonna be working for people. They're gonna say they don't like something. They're gonna say something doesn't work. You're gonna get mad because they're not saying it in the right way. They're kind of being, and they don't mean to be offensive, but maybe they're just frustrated because they can't get something to work. We used to tease Paul sometimes when I was a level designer, and he'd play my level or anybody. So we all kind of, at some point it became funny, but you'd hear him just kind of sigh. And you'd be like, oh, he doesn't like something. He just sighed. And we told him, like, don't sigh anymore. Like, give us the feedback you don't like it. But, like, when you do that, it just makes us feel bad. And Paul's a very nice guy. So I think that was just him trying to internalize it. But, yeah, you've got to be able to give good constructive feedback and, not in a way that makes people feel like this sucks or this is stupid or whatever. And it's easier said than done. So there you go. There's my long-winded advice for all you future game designers out there. And don't take it personal. And sometimes, too, you get criticized and you get all mad. God, there was one thing I was so pissed off about. And I ended up redoing it, and it was way better. I think it was something just little. It was like in Giants. It was in that second level. The items to fix Flynn's ship were, something. And originally they were way too arbitrary and seemed stupid. And I was like, I don't know. I got in this whole long argument. But then I redid it, and it was way better. So I was glad ultimately in the end. So sometimes, too, that's the other thing. It's like you know how the sausage is made, but then when it gets done, it's like you realize it's all for the best. And I don't know any secret to not taking it personally, because if you are a passionate, creative person, that's part of what makes you you. So you're gonna take it personally, and you're gonna be passionate about your rage sometimes. I recommend if you work for a really cool company and they'll let you take a break to go jog for 45 minutes, find a place like that, because that can be very calming and helpful.
It's very good advice.
Yeah, good advice for companies too.
Yeah, but don't ask that on your first interview. Be like, hey, what is your policy on leaving in the middle of the day to jog for an hour? Are you cool with that? Wait until they've hired you and you've kind of they kind of like you, maybe the first couple of weeks, and then you ask. See what other people do. Test the waters, read the room.
That's always solid advice.
Yeah.
As the first 10 years draws to a close, if you could say one thing to the fans regarding how you feel about the franchise and the community as a whole, what would it be?
That's a good question. And of course, my first instinct is to make some silly joke, but I will say in all honesty and sincerity that I grew up playing video games when video games came out as a kid, and I loved them. I mean, Christmas Eve, I couldn't sleep because I thought about the new game I was going to get, and it was meant everything to me. And to make a game that people cared about on that same level was beyond fulfilling for me. That I loved making a game especially for kids, because I was a kid that played video games, and that was just very rewarding. So I thank everybody, and it was such an honor to make something. And I got and responded to fan mail that we got and ideas that we got. And I love doing that, because I love thinking that I remember what was probably the Christmas of Giants, and thinking some kids can't wait to get Giants tonight. They're thinking about it. And I did that. And that's awesome. And I love that I could contribute to that same thing, because, my kids play too much video games, but they're a wonderful thing. And I couldn't have imagined my childhood growing up without them. So I'm just proud and happy that I got to be a part of this great machine that is video games for a little bit, and especially for younger kids, because that's when it's all magical and wonderful. When you get older, you still love games. It's just different than the passion of a kid. So I was super happy, lucky. I never forget how lucky I was, even when I'm all crabby and complaining. I was very lucky, and it was an honor.
Really, the honor is ours. You got to voice so many of the popular characters, right? Chompy Mage, Broccoli Guy, Drobot, and just all the work that you did. You brought so many wonderful characters to life via your voice and also your writing. It's been a pleasure to be able to experience that over the past 10 years. It's just been wonderful. And while I was definitely more in my high school years when Skylanders came out, I was still one of those people where I just got so excited to go to the store, try to go shopping for a new Skylander, see what was out, wait for the waves to come out whenever there was new characters. So it was just great for me, and just you were such a huge part of that, so thank you, really.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. That is literally what I did it for, and everything. I think, at least I hope, at least is what I tell myself. I mean, every idea that I was passionate about and argued for, I was doing it because I thought it served the audience, and that was always the goal. It was I didn't want to make games for me. I wanted to make games for our audience and things that they would like. And it's good to know that, some of that reached them.
See, and I like that you mentioned the whole Christmas Eve thing, because for me and my son, we started in Skylanders later than most. We didn't start until Trap Team. But my son, similarly to how you were as a child, Christmas Eve, it was that anticipation. And come the release of Superchargers and Imaginators, that's exactly what was waiting for him Christmas morning.
Yeah.
It was just the most amazing feeling to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, right. You get to play the Santa and everything. Yeah, I know that feeling too, and that's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's Christmas for Portal Masters too.
There you go. That could be our anniversary song.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, especially because there's only been like 2 other interviews with you on the internet. So it's great that we were able to do this deep dive with you into the characters and the voice acting on the Skylanders games.
Well, thank you so much for thinking of me and for helping my paltry number of interviews out there. Because I agree, this is a voice that everybody needs to hear.
Absolutely.
This segment might be over, but don't touch that dial, baby. Stay tuned for another segment of the Skylanders 10th anniversary celebration. Until then, this is Chill Bill, signing off.
All right, next is the Chompy Mage. Let's see, can I do it? I have to get into character. Hold on. It is, oh God. It is I, the Chompy Mage, and you are not a Chompy, so I don't like you. Why am I on the podcast now? It's the 10th anniversary, man. Okay, let me, Lightning Rod, let's see if I can do him. Behold! Yeah, he might break up a little bit. I've gotten old!